And good morning, everyone. Welcome aboard to another edition of After Further Review, coming off of another Browns less than artistic but effective victory, 22-17 over the Eagles. I'm Dave DeNatale. That is Jay Crawford. And Jay, I'll tell you, they aren't pretty, as I said, but you got to give the Browns a ton of credit because they are finding ways to win each and every week. Unconventional, but effective. And, look, through 10 games, this is a 7-3 team. Now, we can pick at it all we want, but this is a 7-3 team.
Yeah, and you never apologize for wins in the NFL, just like you don't make excuses for losses. But it's nuts, Dino. It really is. The schedule couldn't be any more favorable. It really couldn't. Getting the NFC East in a year when they don't have a team with 4 wins, yet, you've got the Baltimore Ravens at 6-4, and they're in 3rd place behind our Cleveland Browns, by the way, in the AFC North. And how bizarre is that to look at the current and updated standings and to see the Ravens below the Browns, and there are 6 games to play. And that lead of a game could stretch because they get the unbeaten Pittsburgh Steelers Thanksgiving night, and the Browns get to go to 1-9 Jacksonville on Sunday. And if the outcomes that are expected come to fruition, the Browns have a 2-game lead on the Ravens with 5 to play, including 1 against Baltimore. So it's pretty bizarre, and it's not a thing of beauty. You mentioned not artistic. They're not, but at the end of the day, these are all games that the Browns in the past found a way to lose.
Yes.
And this time around, they're not. And I credit that to the head coaching, the coaching staff and head coach Kevin Stefanski. I think the culture's different. I think, they're told week in and week out that you're 0-0. You have a game on Sunday against Jacksonville. Go make your reputation, because as you know, in this league, Dino, you make your reputation every Sunday. Nothing you've done in the past carries over, good or bad. And it's stunning to me that we are where we are with 6 games to go, 2 against the New York teams, which couldn't be worse. And you've got a 1-9 Jacksonville team waiting for you on Sunday. It's crazy. And I loved yesterday how the defense all stood up and rallied around the absence of Myles Garrett. There were a lot of stars yesterday, and 95 wasn't on the field.
Yeah, he was. He was on his Twitter feed, but he was not on the field. You wrote about that this morning on WKYT.com, so I hope you have a good chance. We've got a link to it here in the story as well. Jay's column from this morning. Olivier Vernon did his best Myles Garrett impersonation. I mean, that safety looked like something that 95 would have done earlier in the year.
It did, yeah.
He played beautifully. Denzel Ward looks to me like an all-pro. I mean, not just like he's a Pro Bowler. He's one of the best corners in the league right now, I think.
I would definitely second that. And we're seeing an improvement on Denzel Ward's rookie season. Remember, last year he took a step back. And we were all scratching our heads saying, wait, what happened? Now we know he was dinged, and that probably had something to do with it. But the Denzel Ward that we're seeing this year, we've talked, in the past about how all great Super Bowl defenses have that stalwart up front, the stalwart in the middle, and the stalwart in the back end of the defense. Check on Myles Garrett up front. I think check on Denzel Ward in the back. And I got to tell you, I think Mack Wilson could become that guy in the middle. There was a particular play yesterday that I know you'll remember when I bring it up. And I think what it does is it drives home that this group, because that's what they always are, when you break camp, you're a group of 53 players. The question is, can you galvanize into a team? There was a moment yesterday when Denzel Ward took a particularly hard hit on a play near the sidelines. And Mack Wilson came in and took exception to how the bigger tight end was picking on the much smaller Denzel Ward. And Wilson lowered the boom. And in that moment, I immediately said, they're a team. If there was a question before, they're a team. That's what teams do. You have your teammates back. And I thought it was symbolic yesterday that the Browns had 5 sacks. Now, granted, Carson Wentz is a piñata, and he leads the league in most sacks for any quarterback. But it was symbolic to me that the Browns sacked him 5 times, even though that Philly line is patchwork and old and not great. The Browns brought it, and I think that was all a cumulative effort. We got Miles back here. So there's 2 examples of Mack Wilson protecting his smaller cornerback and really the entire defense. A lot of those were coverage sacks, by the way.
Yes.
But the entire defense stepping up and telling Miles, you get well, we'll see you when you get back. And that's what you love to see. You just love to see that, because when you start playing for one another instead of yourself and the greater good instead of your stats, that's how teams make playoff runs. That's how teams become great.
Right. And to me, the Taki interception, the pick 6, that was exactly what you're talking about. It was like a metaphor, because, the Ward pressure coming in and how he smartly blitzed on Wentz forces the bad throw.
Yeah.
And Taki reads it. He's in the right place and he's gone. I mean, picking each other up, everybody contributing their 111th. They always talk about that, growing up playing, in high school or even before that. You got to do your 111th. Everybody did their 111th on that play. They score, and the defense ends up, directly putting 7 or 9 points on the board yesterday.
And you talk about 111th. I had a coach that once said, if everybody volunteers their 111th, the sum can be greater than its parts. Well, what does that mean? Well, if you take 11 111ths, you get 1, right?
Right.
But if you get 11 working together, the sum of that can be greater than its parts. That's how you rise up. And I got to tell you, and rightfully so, we beat the defense into the ground the first 7 games because they were averaging just under 28 points allowed per game. You're not going to win much in the NFL when you're allowing 4 touchdowns a game. Since that point, now I know that the weather was horrible in all 3 games.
Yeah.
But you hold the Raiders to 16, a team that is within a whisker of being 2-0 against the Super Bowl favorites this year.
Right.
You hold a Tennessee or a Texans team, which had some problems on offense, but still, as long as you've got Deshaun Watson back there, you've got a chance. They hold him to 7 points. And yesterday, clearly Wentz and that Philly offense is out of sorts. But you still do what you have to do. The first touchdown was the result of a fumble and a 1-play 19-yard drive. And the second touchdown was the result of really garbage time. We're going to go into prevent. You're not going to beat us deep. You're going to have to nickel and dime and see what happens. You need 2 scores. We're good. So other than that, the Browns defense showed a whole lot of bend and not much break yesterday. And it's stunning to me how much this defense has improved. Now, look, Jacksonville's not going to give them much of a test Sunday, but you've got Tennessee, Baltimore, and Pittsburgh looming.
Yes.
So you really have to make sure your shop is in order and everything is buttoned up for those 3 games, because remember, the Titans embarrassed the Browns last year and got their season to a downward spiral right out of the gate. There's revenge and payback for that one. The Ravens and the Steelers put a couple of wallops on us earlier this season. So if you can't get motivated for those 3 games, there's an issue there. So there's a whole lot of want to in this club. The defense is getting better, starting to believe in itself. And the team as a whole now believes that if they're close late, they can pull it out. They did it against Cincinnati. They've done it several times this year where they've held on to leads where it looked like they were going to escape. And by the way, we had beaten up the Browns for also only having 1 quality win. We said the win against the Colts was nice. That win against the Colts looks a whole lot better this day than it did going into the Green Bay Colts game yesterday. This is a good Colts football team. They're leading their division right now. And the Browns have a nice, solid win against that football team. There's nothing fluky about that win. So, God, I got to tell you, man, I always put teams in 4 categories. You're either bad, you're good, you're really good, or you're great. And we lived in bad for a long time. And we're good right now, and we're knocking on pretty good's door. And I give all the credit to Kevin Stefanski for setting this culture. And the play calling yesterday, by the way, Dino, I want to mention that because I think that's a worthy point. You had rough rain and rough conditions. Mayfield dropped back to pass 25 times. He was sacked 3. He was 12 for 22, quietly respectable, no picks. 3rd straight game he's done that.
Yes.
And that's only the 2nd time in his 3-year career that's happened. But more importantly, they ran it 40 times. And you saw the formula again. We're going to body blow you, body blow you, body blow you for 3 quarters with Hunt and Chubb, mostly Chubb. And then when the body gets weak, that one shot to the head, the legs buckle, the fuse is blown, and you saw the 54-yard run that set up the Hunt touchdown. So Stefanski gets it, man. His offensive philosophy is built for the way this team wants to win, the way this team needs to win. And let's hope the train keeps rolling because it's a lot of fun.
It is. I love the fact that, those 3 quarters when you're jabbing and the running game for the most part doesn't seem to be working. I mean, poor Kareem Hunt, because he had to go back for that lateral. He's in the negative going into the last quarter. I mean, it's rough. It's not working, but we've seen it so many times. Other coaches, other coordinators are just going to abandon the run. Yeah. The Browns stick to it. Stefanski stick to it.
Yeah, discipline.
And it's right. It's discipline. And then, he knows that something's going to bust loose like it did last week, like it did. I mean, all you needed was one great stiff arm by Nick Chubb, and it completely breaks open a team's spirit, a team's confidence, etc. I love it, Jay, because again, we've seen so many times other running games get abandoned. Not this one.
Yeah, and that's such a great point because last year when it wasn't there immediately, Freddie was like, okay, we got to chuck it 40 times. Well, you know what happens when you do that. The beauty of what the Browns have going right now is they're I don't want to call Baker a check down Charlie, but what he's doing is he's throwing a lot of the high percentage, low risk passes. So in other words, I think a lot of the deep shots that might have been there when OBJ was in the offense, I think what they've done now, and by the way, they hit a couple of deep balls yesterday. The throw to Hodge was nice, but what's perfect about what this team is doing right now is when the run hasn't taken the pound of flesh out of the defense yet, particularly the first half and into the 3rd quarter, you need to be able to move the sticks to keep in rhythm and to keep your defense off the field. So if your run game isn't working early and you go 1st down, run 3 yards, 2nd down, run 1 yard, 3rd and 6, you've got to be able to throw the ball. You have to. You can't just rely on the run, and you can't just rely on the pass. So what the Browns are doing is dink, dink. If you don't get the 1st down, you dunk with a 7 or 8 yard short, high percentage, low risk pass, chains move. You get a couple of other runs in there to take the pound of flesh out of the defense. And maybe you move 9 yards, open the playbook on a 2nd and 1, knowing that you're good. But what it does is it allows you to keep your offense on the field, you're churning clock, and your defense is getting deep breaths. That's critical. And that's why I think in the 4th quarter, you haven't seen the Browns give up these leads all the way. You saw Dallas come back. They held them off. So I think having Baker where he is now, and he's not a game manager, he's a little better than that, but you need the 3rd and 8, you can get it. He had a couple of critical 3rd down completions yesterday that allowed the offense to stay on the field and the defense on their seats. So moving the ball slowly and methodically throughout the first couple of quarters on the run, but being able to pick up the first down on the throw, moving the ball down the field, gathering points where you can. The run game will open in the fourth quarter because Chubb has worn the defense down. And he's not tired because Stefanski is wisely using them on and off. Every once in a while on a random series, you'll see Hunt get all the work. Chubb's getting rest, getting ready for the fourth quarter. So I think Stefanski has been an absolute maestro in orchestrating this offense. I hope it can continue, but it's reliant on Baker Mayfield being able to get the 3rd and 6s. You don't have to go home run ball, but just get the short stuff. You've got Hooper. You've got a group of receivers now that it's proving to be pretty good. How about Hodge yesterday? 3 for 77. So, I really like what they're doing. And I can't give enough credit where I think it's due, and that's Kevin Stefanski. By the way, my favorite moment from yesterday was the replay of Chubb's 54-yard run, showing Baker Mayfield kind of running in place as if he's saying, come on, Chubb, keep it going, baby. I loved it.
I'm waiting for a GIF. I'm waiting for a GIF of that. I need something.
It will be there soon.
Yes, I need a GIF of that. Are you worried about? I don't want to nitpick on Baker too much because I agree with you. I thought he smartly played yesterday, and he's done so the last 3 weeks. But the 2 misses to the tight ends in the end zone, one to Bryant and then one to Hooper. Again, the Browns won. The defense picked up the offense after they weren't able to execute that, 4th, and 1 with 4th and goal with Kareem. They went back and they got the ball back and everything. But concerns me a little bit because those are throws Baker normally hits. And I know there's bad weather, but I just think that's the only thing with Baker that kind of stood out to me negatively yesterday, were throws that I've seen him make a ton of times he didn't make.
So after every game, I mentally assign grades to each unit: defensive front, the linebackers, the defensive backs, the run game, the pass game, the defense as a whole. Same for the offense. Everything yesterday was a solid A or B, with the exception of red zone execution. They were a C again, maybe even a little bit below that. And those are the 2 throws that stand out in my mind. He's got guys wide open in the end zone, or at least open to make catches, particularly the second one to Hooper. The first one is underthrown. We got the pass interference call. The second one, he's wide open. You got to put a little air under that ball, and you've got to let him come under it and catch it. And that's my biggest concern right now, because when you leave points on the field, and by the way, they got nothing out of that drive. You can't have situations like that against Pittsburgh, Baltimore, or Tennessee and win the game. Right. You're leaving valuable points on the field. So their red zone execution, particularly their 1st and goal execution, has to be better. It just does. When you watch the Chiefs, they don't kick field goals because they finish drives. And it's Andy Reid, and he's the most creative play caller maybe ever. You watched him yesterday with some of the things that they pulled out against the Raiders. John Gruden's got to be over there going, are you kidding me with this? Are you kidding me? And he knows Andy well. They were on the same staff together once. Right. So he understands what's going on. But I got to tell you, we haven't shown the kind of creativity that we'll need to beat the Titans and the Ravens and the Steelers, and the execution. If they can just punch that box and start to get better inside the red zone, 3s become 7s, goose eggs become 3s, and you just give yourself a better chance to win the game. It's not rocket science. It really isn't. And Baker knows that. Look, no one knows more than Baker that he missed those throws, and he knows he has to get better. And, we're seeing some gradual improvement from Baker in certain areas. For me, I think the biggest step he's taken this year is just to be a better steward of the football. Yeah. He still has the pick. He still has more picks than I wish he had, But, look, he's got 3 in a row without throwing one. And if you count up the throws, it's a good number. And they were all in horrible conditions. Wet yesterday, windy the last 2 games prior. And he's taking care of the football. So it's a big step. And it's a confidence booster. Every time he walks off the field with a 0 in the interception column, he starts to realize we can win games without me gunslinging it. Right. He's still going to have that Brett Favre in him where he's going to try to make throws that he probably shouldn't, but that's what makes him who he is. And by the way, I'm good friends with Mark Schlereth. I love that Schlereth and Amin put their finger on the pulse of Baker's love of the game. And it really showed yesterday. And that's why I brought up his reaction to Chubb's run. That's something Brett Favre would have done.
Absolutely right.
And you got to love it because Nick Chubb didn't see that, but he'll see it. He's probably seen it by now and he's heard about it. And that just makes, it makes all of them a closer unit. They're building that. They're turning that group into a team. Yep. And that's how you win.
Yeah. It's those little things, isn't it? Last thing I wanted to bring up with you, it's just something that was going on social media yesterday as the game was going on. Do we owe Paul DePodesta an apology for basically ripping on him for his evaluation of Carson Wentz? Going back to 2016 when he told my man Tony Grossi that the Browns did not believe that Wentz was a top 20 quarterback. I look at this, Jay. I mean, Wentz to me looks like a guy who's like 27 going on 33. I just think he's been beaten up the last 2 or 3 years. But I'm not ready to say he's a bust. I remember 2017. But what do you say?
Here's what I say to that. First of all, I don't think we do owe DePodesta an apology, but I also thought some of the criticism was unfounded. So if you haven't learned this by now, you're not paying attention. Football isn't won at the quarterback position, as much as people want to say it is. Football, and guys that have studied it and coached it and played it their whole lives will tell you this. I've had countless guys tell me this. I love asking the question, where do you win football games? Ask someone that's played the game. They're going to tell you in the trenches. If you're stronger up front than the other team is on defense, and your defensive front can get push on the offensive line, you're going to win football games. End of discussion. That's the point of attack. If you lose the point of attack, how do you win the battle? Well, if you have a great quarterback that can overcome those deficiencies, you can win. 2 things have happened with Carson Wentz. Number 1, Peters, Kelsey, et al., that line that was so good in 2017 is 3 years older, and they're out of gas. Okay, they're done. So you're as good as your offensive line is as a quarterback. When you give him time to throw, and by the way, time to throw is an additional 0.75 seconds. That's the difference between a hurry, a sack, an interception, those 3, or a completion. It's 3/4 of a second. 3/4 of a second is this fast. So you're literally, if you don't give him that extra to find the open man, what happens? He's on the deck. Right. Here's what I've noticed about Wentz. He listens too much to the Philly fans. He threw a lot of interceptions because he was trying to get rid of the ball before he got hit. Right. And then he took a beating in the media and amongst fans on call-in radio in Philly because he was throwing too many picks. What happened to Carson Wentz? All he does is throw interceptions. Well, now all he does is take sacks. Why is he taking sacks? He decided, okay, you don't want me to throw interceptions? I'm a big guy. I can stand in there and take it. So now he holds the ball too long. You saw it all day yesterday. Yep. He's afraid to pull the trigger. At one point, I thought that the Schlereth did a great job of showing how on the pick from the pressure when Ward got to him in the pick 6. Yeah. He had a man in the flank that was open. And he pumped to throw it to him. And he decided to check off of him and to go for the other receiver. That little tick cost him 7 points.
Right.
Because instead of throwing to the open man and taking the 5 yards that was there,
right,
he decided he was going to make something bigger happen. He pulled the ball back. He moved his feet. He saw his man. He goes to throw the ball. Ward hits his arm. Taki runs under it. 6 points. So in film study, what they're going to point out to him is very simple. You have a man, throw the ball.
Right.
Get rid of it. And he's just holding it too long. That's it. So I don't know that Carson Wentz is any worse than he was in 2017. What's changed is he doesn't have the proper bodyguards anymore. He doesn't have the protection to give him from 2.5 seconds to 3.25 seconds to 3.5 seconds. Because you go back and look at it. In baseball, one thing will always be true. The league as a whole always hits better when the count is in their favor. So when it's a square nothing count, there's an average. When there's a 1-0 count, that average as a league goes up. When there's a 2-0 count, that average as a league goes up. 3-0 count, 3-1 count, 0-1, 0-2, the league doesn't hit as well. That's a fact. It will always be that way. In the NFL, here's the equivalent. Quarterbacks' percentage of completions and ratio of completions to interceptions will go up the more time you give him to throw the football. When that clock gets shortened, their completion percentage and their interception ratio also go in the wrong direction. Take away time, your stats get squelched. That's what it is with Carson Wentz. He doesn't have time to stand back there and pick receivers anymore. Suddenly he looks very, very human.
Yeah. It's just, I wanted to get your thought on that because it was interesting discussions on social media, and I had people texting me about it too. And I was curious to get your thought on that. That's obviously that's the Philadelphia's issue, not the Browns' issue, but just a little side note involving the Browns.
I would like to, a fun experiment would be just pull Wentz out of Philly right now and drop him onto a team that has a really good offensive line. I mean, an offensive line that will give him time to stand with both feet firm, not feet churning, both feet planted on the ground like Tom Brady used to do for so many years in New England, and just pick his guy. How would he do? I'm telling you, he wouldn't be 3-6-1.
No, I don't think so either. My friend, it's always a pleasure. I'll always look forward to doing this with you. Have a great Thanksgiving this week.
And you too. Before you go, quickly, Dino, I want to give a shout out to Chardon High School, to Kirtland High School.
Yeah.
And look, Lake Catholic, you guys played your butts off. Keep your heads up this day because you should be proud of the season that you had. But particularly hats off to Kirtland and to Chardon. Dino, you realize in this very, very small section of Ohio geography, very small section, a few miles separating all of these high schools, we nearly won half of the state championships in that little space of real estate. It's a football hotbed. Those kids are well coached. They work their tails off, and Chardon never gave up. It was incredible watching that game. When they were down 28-14, I thought it was over. They fought till the end. Hats off. You guys are the best in the state.
I love Mitch Hewitt.
Great job.
I saw them earlier in the year, and I saw them in the playoffs, and you just had a feeling about them that they could do it. The fact that Kirtland, I don't care if they're in Division 6 or Division 5, they just win. Tiger Laverty just wins. I mean, 41
a great football team.
Yeah,
and you know what it is?
An amazing story.
DeSales was a good team. I think they were more of a one-man team. They had some good defensive players, but I thought, on offense, it was the Quinn show for sure. But when you watch Chardon, they've got a lot of different guys that can beat you. If it's not Pettijohn, the quarterback is making plays either with his arm or with his leg. They had 0 yards passing at halftime, and I think they finished with 245. So what you really realize when you watch a team like Chardon play, that's probably not the most talented team in the state, but they're the best coached, most well-rounded team. They have skill at the players they need to have it at, but they just do such a good job with the fundamentals. They're such a good football team. And they also have good players, but a lot of teams win because they have dominant talent and they roll them out there, and it is what it is. But this is a situation where they had really good talent, but phenomenal coaching, and hats off to Chardon. They're a fun team to watch. I think Chardon and DeSales could play 10 times and they'd split 5, but they won the only one that matters.
But isn't it crazy? 2 years ago, it was Kirtland and Kenston over in that part of the area that won state titles. Last year, Aurora knocked on the door in the state semis, lost in overtime. Now this year, you get Chardon and Kirtland again. You're right. It is a high. You talk about Northeast Ohio, but the east side, Lake Geauga County, not bad, my friend. Not bad.
Yeah, they play some pretty good football over here. They really do.
Crawford country, baby. All right, Jay, have a great one. We'll see you later on What's New at 5, and we'll see you back next week as well. Have a great Thanksgiving, my friend.
You too. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody.